Here with me. Hi, Meech.
Morning, morning, morning.
And today we have Darlene Reed and TJ Mikowski from the Village for Families and Children with us. We love the Village and welcome to you both.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So, I know that you guys have a lot going on right now. First of all, TJ, let us know, how are you working right now with everything that's going on with COVID over there at the Village?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge. Most of our work went remote when the pandemic struck, and then we learned how to do a lot of the work that we do with the children and families from our homes and virtual. So it was a bit of a shift. We moved to a Zoom environment, and then actually we added teams, and we've been trying to figure out ways to meet the kids and the clients where they're at, whether it's FaceTime or whatever media stream that they use that they're most comfortable with. And so it's been a bit of a challenge trying to make that happen. Learning how to, a lot of the documentation we have that we do that's kind of behind the scenes requires signatures and approvals. And so that's been a bit of a challenge to kind of overcome, learning how to do that. But to my great surprise and the wonderful work that my staff have done, they haven't missed a beat. They've maintained regular contact with each of their families and kids. They check in regularly. They make sure that everyone's doing okay and has what they need. And whenever we need to, we supply PPE that's needed, or for many of our families, a few of them have struggled with food insecurity, and we've met those needs as well. And so we've really, tightened up as a community. It's been really nice to see. Our families have risen to the occasion. They went from, children in school full time, them working, there being after school programs, daycare centers, sports, and all those activities that, kind of kept our lives robust and enjoyable, to now all being home and in tight quarters together. It's been a real challenge. I'm sure for everybody in the community, but some of our foster kids really struggle. And so for our families to step up and take on a bigger role, than they ever had before was remarkable.
Wow.
Right. Would you like to add to that, Darlene?
TJ just about said it right. It has been a challenge, but they have done remarkably well. They have.
Right.
And the staff have too. I mean, the staff have learned how to do connecting with families and doing online trainings. And, Darlene is the one that brings in new families and trains them and then does all that, kind of behind the scenes to help usher new families in. And we haven't skipped a beat. We've been bringing in new families to take in foster kids. Some of the challenges we've had with kids during this prolonged pandemic has been kids will go to school and somebody at school will test positive. The school calls the family. The family then says, well, wait a second, I can't have this kid come home. I've got my own health issues. And so in foster care, which is unlike other family settings, we have to plan for a kid, whether the family takes them back or not. We have to find another family, and that becomes a real challenge. And so we're always recruiting families who could even be respite providers, short-term temporary placements for kids when they find themselves in these circumstances. And, and God bless Darlene. She's been there all along and doing that and bringing families in and helping them get to help us in those kinds of ways. So shout out.
I never even thought of that, like just that being in a situation. Obviously, this is new. This is a new world that we're in right now as far as dealing with COVID and the pandemic. But just thinking about, like you said, like if a situation like that happened with a kid getting that, and that just how does that work now? With the families. And so you just kind of blew my mind, because I didn't even think about that situation. That's very crazy. Just, with this foster care program, I just kind of wanted to just kind of, Darlene, if you could break it down, like, how, let's say I'm somebody that's interested in becoming a foster parent, like, how do I get involved?
Okay. One of the things that we do, one of the things that I do, I am also what they call the resource coordinator. I'm the one who trains you. I'm also the person who matches you with a child. So when you go on our line, when you go on our website, we have a dedicated portion of that website to foster care. And it will tell you about our program. It tells you who to contact. We have a new recruiter, Jonathan, and he's like the first point of contact. You actually fill in a form just saying I'm interested, and it will go to TJ, and TJ will forward it over to myself or Jonathan. I would then call you and I would talk to you about our program. And I'd also put you in our database as I'm talking to you so that we don't lose you. From the time you decide to call or make that call to the time that you actually do is 2 years.
Wow.
The average is 2 years. Yeah. When you start thinking about becoming a foster parent and when you actually make that call, is 2 years. So by the time you make that call, we want you. We want to hold on to you. We know that you're ready now. You've been thinking about it. So we call you immediately. We put you in our database. I tell you all about our program. I tell you about the kids that we serve. I tell you about what our expectations are. I ask, what are your expectations? And so you will know right away if you're ready for our program or if you're not. Because some people will call and say, I want a baby. We don't place babies. We place anywhere from 6 to 18. We don't place babies. So I know then that I need to divert you to another program, to DCF, because they place from 0, what we call newborn, to 6. So that's how the process kind of starts. You start out talking to me, you get an idea of what our program is like. You get more of an idea once we hit training, but you get an idea and a rundown on what our program is like. And then you can also make a decision. You can take a few days, make an informed decision as to whether you want to go forward.
Wow. I didn't realize that it was that long that you have to be invested into just trying to become a foster parent. But I have to say, I guess that's a really great thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not rushing into something you're not ready for, you know?
Well, it's the thought. A lot of people think about it, and it does take you a couple of years because some individuals think about it. They have children, and they start thinking, well, my son is 2. Do I want another child right now? Maybe when he's 10, or, you start thinking the whole thing through. What is this going to mean to my life? Because your life will change.
Right. Because you have
What
another
is this
child to
mean
take care of. Yes.
Yes. And you're taking on a child that you didn't give birth to. He was already, or she was already born. So you have to think about what they come with also.
Right.
So it does take you a little time. But for the licensing process, really, it only takes you about 4 months. That only takes about 4 months from start to finish. But when you make that initial contact, that's what takes the longest time. But I'm sure you're ready by then because you have thought about it.
Right. So are you finding now with COVID, are people signing up more than ever, or are they more reluctant to become foster parents?
We find that people are signing up. Actually, they're signing up more. I think because they have more time, more free time. So they're thinking, I can do this now. I'm not working right now. I'm not working full time right now. I can do this now. And so I find that they're signing up more now during this COVID. But on the same token, our foster parents, the ones that are already licensed, are pulling back a little bit because of COVID. I don't want to take a child right now because of COVID. I'm scared to bring them in my house. So it really works out for us in the sense that people are coming in while our other foster parents are stepping back a little.
Right.
So what do you do during that time where you're going to place a child, TJ? Do you guys actually test the child before the child enters a home, or how do you guys keep everybody safe?
It's a good question because the CDC guidelines don't necessarily require testing children as frequently. And so a lot of times if a kid is coming in and not showing any signs, there's no reason to do any testing. It's, but families are still cautious. They're cautious because they're coming from unknown environments to them. And so it's a bit of a challenge. And some families just recognize that, okay, well, we're going to move ahead and develop these relationships and, you know, and move on. One of the challenging parts of this has been prior to the COVID outbreak, we would do what's called kind of a pre-visit placements, where we would have kids visit. So the family would go through what we call a disclosure meeting, and that is they hear all about the child before they make their mind up, and then they ask questions to the workers who know the kid. And this is, of course, after licensing. And then they would agree, okay, they'd have a conversation, say, yeah, we think this might make a good fit for our family. And then they'd move forward, and they would meet the child where the child's at, whether it's in a group home or another family or in the community. And they'd have a series of these meetings, maybe then dinner, and then an overnight, you know, and then maybe a weekend overnight. And then we'd have this all planned out, and they would, before the child moved in. It allowed the child to slowly walk into that relationship and allowed the family to kind of display who they are and share their environment, their family, their house, their folks. In COVID, there is none of that, because the kid is not okay to leave and come back. So if he's in a group home or another home, the moves tend to be more emergency based. They say, we need a family, and we need a family now. And by the way, we can't do pre-placement visits. It's all or nothing, because if he's coming out of a congregate care setting, there's no coming back. There's no visits at congregate care settings. They're not inviting opportunities for the infection to come on campus, because congregate care settings, like nursing homes, are rife with spreading the virus, and then it's hard to contain. And so that it's really made, and these are things I think people in the general population don't think about, right? You don't think about all the complexities that are involved in the foster care world, right, because of COVID, and now how it's drastically changed our lives. I got a call with two children who, like the scenario I had shared, who were at night, they had come home from school to a family that said, you can't be here. And the family had the worker pick them up from school because they were exposed at school. And there were two children, 8 and 10, needing a home like that.
I'm sorry. Can I just tell you guys, like, hearing these stories, and you guys do such great work, but it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
These stories, no, I don't know how you guys do this every day, because just hearing these stories, it really affects me. It really upsets me hearing about these kids. Like, you know, we've talked to other folks from the village before, have told us, you know, that these kids have all of their belongings in a bag. And I just can't imagine, you know, my children having to deal with something like that. And for any child to have to deal with it is just, to me, just so heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we need some really great foster parents, you know, to get involved. We need people to get involved and to help these kids out, you know. And how do we become a foster parent? I know you said the process and how we make the call, but what's the criteria surrounding it?
Do you want to go, Darlene?
Okay. When you need to be at least 21 or older. Okay. We usually like you to be a little bit older, a little more life experience, because believe it or not, the children we serve have had a lot of life experience.
Right.
And so you need to be 21. You need to have the place of your own. It could be an apartment, but as long as the apartment has meet all the regulatory regulations for the state, we're good. Okay. Meaning it has to have a room door, a window, it has to have fire and smoke detectors, those things. So as long as you can have an apartment, you can have your own house. The child needs to have their own room. And okay, under our program, they have to be able to have their own room. They can't share a room with your child or anyone else. They need to have their own room. You need to be able to pass all of the background checks. We do child protective service checks. We do fingerprints. It's very invasive. I'm going to tell you that. If you don't want us in your life, then you don't want to be a foster parent, because we do all the background checks. We do DMV. We need to know DMV. We get FBI will do checks also, but we'll just get something saying you passed. We used to get the whole report, but we don't now because of HIPAA. And so those are the basic things that you need in order to become a foster parent. You need to have, we like for you to have income. We're not saying you have to have a job, but you have to have enough to support yourself and the child, just in case the stipend doesn't come through. We want to know that you're not doing this for the money.
Right.
So you have to have income.
Because, there is kind of a stigma surrounding that, Darlene.
I know.
There is a stigma, yeah.
Yes, I know. And that's why I said that.
Yeah.
Because the majority of foster parents are not. They do it because of they do it out of the kindness of their heart, because they feel they have something to give, and to give to a child who things have been taken away from through no fault of their own. That's the majority of foster parents. Now, all programs, including ours, might have some parents who will say, oh, this is extra money for me. But I will tell you this, those foster parents have done the best job of parenting those children that you would not believe. Even though they started out saying, oh, I need some extra money, they don't really tell us that, but you kind of can figure it out after a while, like what is going on. But they have done a wonderful job. But I will tell you, 99% of our parents come to us because they want to help. They have something to give. And it's not like you can just walk in. If your house is under foreclosure, we'll know. Because I'm telling you, it's invasive. If you have lost your job, if you're living below the poverty level, we'll know because we've checked that out. So
like, I know your whole life.
Yes, I do. I know your whole life. Your whole life. If you stole gum when you were 16, I know.
Darlene, I was arrested 3 times. I spent 6 hours total in jail. Can I be a foster parent?
It depends on what you did.
As long as you didn't hurt a child.
It was a long time ago. It was fighting, stuff like
Did it involve children? No.
No. It did not. So, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good about my chances right now.
So you have good chances.
Can I share something that I'd love to talk a little bit more about those stigmas you talk about, right?
Yes.
Because there is, right? There's stigmas in the community about what foster care is and the issues. I think a lot of people fear what children bring to their to their home, the behaviors and stuff. One of the biggest factors, I think a lot of people think that these children are sexually abused. Actual sexual abuse is a very small portion of the population of kids that we get. Vast majority of them come into care for neglect issues. Parents who have had domestic violence or substance abuse issues or mental health issues of their own and can't really care for their children. All the time, every time a child touches the child welfare system, the system is looking for kin. They don't want to bring you and put you in family where you don't know. The foster care is kind of the last resort. It's meant to be a place that should be temporary until kinship is found or the child is adopted, because it's no place for children to grow up forever, right? Children deserve to be owned and cared for by family. And that's where our focus really is. But for those circumstances where we need short-term care for kids to help them get them over a hump, that's what we like to be. And so I was a foster parent up until last year, and we primarily took in teenagers. I would rather have a teenager in my home. As a matter of fact, I'd rather have an angry teenager because I can work with that kid. I know where anger comes from, right? I know that that's the flip side of sadness. I can work with that kid all day long. As a matter of fact, my best kid was my last kid, and he's out there. I'm sure he's probably listening to your radio show too. He loves playing basketball. We love having him over. He has the biggest heart. He's living independently in an apartment that's supported by Demas, and I've gotten to know his mom and his sisters and his family, and they are fantastic. That is foster care. I would do that every day of the week, and I had him for about a year and a half. Taught him some skills. He's now got a car and he's had work. And, those are the things that, I love cooking for him. He likes a couple of meals that I make and he comes over specifically for that. My family has really embraced him. I mean, I've also had kids that were tough. Yeah, and that's part of it. But part of what you do, what you get in, especially when you come to the village, is you get 24-hour a day, 7-day a week support. We are on call. We have an on call all the time. You get an assigned worker that works with you every week. You don't go a week without talking to that person at least a couple of times a week. Always available. So you're never in it alone when you come to do foster care. You are part of a community of people that support one another in doing the work that we need to do to better the lives of the children who have less than us.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm glad
So
that you
great.
shared that, TJ, because I wanted to that was going to be like a 2-part question that I had, just if there was any type of like success stories as far as, children coming in, under, foster care, and then kind of being reconnected back with like their family and just that whole experience there. So obviously you shared that, so that's super amazing. And just the second part of my question, I just wanted to know, like, and I think you kind of answered it too, like, as far as being, in that program now, and me, like, let's say me wanting to be a foster parent, like, is there like a type of thing that you guys do as far as like checkups, or like a couple months, you guys, reconnect with the families to make sure the kids are okay? Like, or do you guys do those type of things, or?
You mean after adoption or just after the placement?
Yeah, like after placement.
Yeah, so if you get a child, so let's say you go through the process, it takes you about, let's say you make that phone call, right? Or you go online and say, I'm interested in foster care. We get in touch with you immediately. I mean, within a couple of days, right? And then we invite you to the process it's considered training. And in that training, it's an assessment. You're assessing us for how we're going to be, and we're assessing you for how you're going to be as a foster parent. And we're concurrently kind of writing that home study about you, and you're helping us. You're contributing. Once you get licensed after 4 or 5 months, however long that takes, and it's paced by where you're at and your availability. Once you get licensed and you get approached to take in a child, once you get matched and you agree to this child coming into your home, you will have a worker assigned to you every day. Okay. I mean, that's your worker. That doesn't change. That person's there. That person has to, by regulation, meet with the child every week.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we don't stop there, because if you call up and ask questions or you need something, the beautiful thing about the village is that we have clinicians and psychiatrists that manage all the surrounding pieces that kids need. So you really are part of a team, and that doesn't end. As long as a child's in your home, that doesn't end, unless you decide to go to adoption.
Right.
When you adopt, we have aftercare after that, but then there are supports beyond that. But that doesn't happen in a vacuum either, because there are programs that help support families after they adopt. Right. So it really, the process of being a foster parent is one that's mutually supportive. I mean, you're supporting a child and we're supporting you. And that's, so we also have DCF workers that are involved and available. But yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question, because you're never in it alone.
So Darlene, I know you talked about there's 2 different types of foster care. There's long-term and there's respite. I think you used the word respite. So can you kind of explain the difference between, those 2 programs?
Okay. Everyone becomes a licensed foster parent. When you come through the program, when you become approved, you are an approved licensed foster parent. And the license, we license your home. Not you per se. We license your home. People always say, they don't really understand what we mean by that, but we license your home. So if you say, I want a child and I want a child long-term, that child will come into your house, and most of our kids will stay until there is some form of reunification, whether that is with their mom, their dad, their godmother, whoever. But if you say, I just want to do respite, that means you just want to take in children who the foster mother might be going away for the weekend, and she needs someone to care for that child because that child can't go with her. That's a respite care worker. That's a respite home. And that is saying that I don't want this full time. I don't want to take care of a child full time, but I will do it if there's an emergency in a family, if the family is going away and the child cannot go along, if the child has to leave school because of COVID, someone tested positive. Who could we use who will take in that child for a short time period? And that's basically what respite is. You're still a foster parent. You're just not doing it on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can only assume that so many of these foster parents must fall in love with these kids. I feel like I would never, and this sounds crazy because maybe I'm going to want to be a foster parent. Don't count this against me. I feel like I would never want to ever give the child back. I would be like, I just love this child so much. And I'm sure that, that does happen. But, TJ, you said it best that you were able to actually form such a great relationship with even the family that now you get to still see that child that you fell so in love with.
Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that there are opportunities for that too, that's great.
Yeah.
I've been doing this so long. I was a foster parent many, many years ago, and I have children that still call me Pop, and they have kids. And then I adopted one when he was 25 because I had been in his life since he was 9.
Oh my God, that's TJ, you're so sweet.
And so now I have 3 grandkids from that relationship. And so, yeah, all kids are going to grow up and they're going to become adults, right? And so we're just asking you to be part of that journey for a short period of time, and it changes your life because then you have these relationships that are part of your life forever. Mostly good. I mean, I have kids that are successes. They have their own businesses. They're across the country. They're married, having kids of their own. I think you get an ugly snapshot of a child in foster care, but that's not who that child remains. That child grows up, and I feel blessed to be a part of their lives that help them get from point A to point B. And I think because we're pretty decent people, that they want to keep that in their life. And so I have kids that mostly connected still on Facebook because they're scattered around the country, but it's phenomenal for me to remain connected and see them grow. So
that's amazing. Okay, so tell us your website again, please, so that we can get on there, look around, and possibly become foster parents.
Yeah, it's thevillage.org. It's pretty straightforward, and there's a whole section dedicated to foster care, and there's actually videos of one of our foster parents and a child that's now a young adult who tell their story. And we're hoping to bring a lot more to that. So stay tuned. In the future, you'll see much more.
Cool.
Well, thank you. So it's Darlene Reed and TJ Mikulski from the Village for Families and Children. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's Hot 937.